Hi, I'm Claire, and today I want to introduce you to my new series, Speculative World, which is all about world science fiction and fantasy. From next week, I'm going to be reviewing international works of science fiction and fantasy, anything that falls into genre fiction that currently has an English translation available for you to buy. The English-speaking market is the biggest and most lucrative market in the world, especially for science fiction and fantasy, yet there aren't that many international authors who do manage to sell their books in English translation. So I think it's really, really important when those books have been translated and they exist for us to consume that we read them and highlight them, and that's why I want to focus a series specifically on reviewing those books. As you may know, I'm French. I grew up in France. French is my native language. So growing up, I consumed a huge amounts of work that had been translated from many languages, but mostly from English into French. And I wouldn't be the reader that I am today, or indeed the person that I am today, if it weren't for all these books that I read that I could only read because they had a translation. And I think that if I'd grown up in England, I would have read far, far, far fewer books that were translated from another language. Of course, there is a wide breadth of excellent work being written and then published directly in English, but there are many other languages and other countries that have very rich traditions of speculative works as well. Speaking from the culture that I know the best, in France we have a very rich tradition of what we call fantastique, which is a tradition of fantasy where we're not quite sure if there's any magic or anything supernatural or not. It's kind of a precursor to magical realism in many ways, and I'm sure that if I spoke to people from various different countries, they'd be able to point me to similar types of traditions in their own cultures as well. I just don't necessarily know about it. But even without going into full-blown analysis of an entire literary genre like the fantastique, there have been a number of very influential science fiction and fantasy works that were originally written and published in languages that were not English. One work that's had an undeniable influence on our genre is the 1920 play R.U.R. by Karel Čapek. It stands for Rossum's Universal Robots, and it introduces the word robot to the genre, and it of course goes on to be used by many other writers that are now better remembered in our genre, I suppose, like Isaac Asimov. There is also the 1924 novel We by Russian novelist Yevgeny Zamyatin. This is a dystopian novel that had to be smuggled out of Soviet Russia after Zamyatin finished writing it in 1921, and it was then translated and first published in English in 1924. This is a very early example of a dystopian novel. It's also called a grandfather of the dystopian genre, and it was a known inspiration for George Orwell when he went on to write in 1984. Some of these international works are deeply foundational for our genre, but some of them are just plain popular. Planet of the Apes is a 1963 novel by French author Pierre Boulle, and it of course went on to be translated into English and made into a number of movie adaptations, generating about $1 gajillion. For a more recent example of a very popular international work, we've got the Chinese bestseller The Three-Body Problem by Cixin Liu, which was translated to English by Ken Liu, and of course went on to win the Hugo Award for Best Novel, making it the first translated work to take home the coveted Best Novel rocket. So as you can see, I'm incredibly excited about this idea. The series will start in earnest next week with a review of an international work. And I know I've talked about a lot of French stuff in this video because it's partly what I know quite well, but I promise I'm going to do my best to have a really wide breadth of country and language of origin represented for all of these novels. But for that, I'm going to need a hand from you if you know any work of science fiction, fantasy, horror, anything that would count as genre fiction that was published in English in translation after being originally written in another language, then please let me know about it in the comments below, and I'll try to find a copy, do a review, put it in this series so that we can all find more international science fiction to fall in love with. If you'd like to see more from me, you can check out the sidebar right here for more videos. And if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button for more videos from me every week. I've been Claire, thanks so much for watching, and see you soon.